Welcome back to another episode of No Shame with Shane, where the takes have no lies, no bias, but most importantly, no shame. I'm your host, Shane Fordham. Now, jumping straight into it, report cards are out. Report cards are out, but I'm not talking about for end of the year report cards. I'm not talking about midterms coming up. I'm not talking about I know hearing report cards coming out scares a lot of people. It honestly still scares me a little bit, PTSD from back in the day. But no, I'm not talking about academic report cards. I'm talking about report cards for the NFL. Report cards for the NFL from the NFL Players Association. They were released this week. Eagles report cards came out for the staff. And I got to say, one grade that does not surprise me on this list is Kevin Patullo. Kevin Patullo got a C plus on his report card. Honestly, it doesn't surprise me, but I also think they're being nice. A C plus for Kevin Patullo is generous. A C plus for Kevin Patullo on the report card on the staffing report cards from the NFL Players Association is very generous because he deserved an F. Kevin Patullo 100% deserved an F for what he did, for what he put on the field this season. Honestly, if an F minus existed, if the universal academic grading scale had an F minus, that's what Kevin Patullo deserved after this year. Like, for Kevin Patullo to, like, we're talking about an offense that won the Super Bowl in 2024, was the best offense in the league. For him, the offense that was top 10 in every major category. For the offense to go from that to now being 24th in yards per game, 23rd in passing yards per game, 18th in rushing yards per game. For Kevin Patullo to be responsible for that significant of a drop off. For him to underperform the way he did with who he had, with who he had on the field, who he had in that locker room on the depth chart, that is inexcusable. That's honestly egregious. For Kevin Patullo to be at the helm of that drastic of a turnaround from a Super Bowl caliber offense on top of the world offense to now bottom third offense in the NFL, that's unforgivable. That's inexcusable. And as obviously it's fireable because that's ridiculous. Kevin Patullo couldn't have done a worse job than what he did in 2025. He couldn't have done a worse job. He honestly deserved an F minus. And honestly, C plus was a very, very generous grade by the players for Kevin Patullo. That's them just trying to save his feelings. Kevin Patullo getting a C plus on this report card was just players trying to be nice. Like that, honestly, Kevin Patullo getting a C plus, it honestly reminds me of back in the day when, you know, that teacher you were cool with back in the day in school would kind of give you a little something, a little bit of a boost just to make sure you weren't being left behind. You know, just to not make you look bad to the other students, you know, to the other teachers, you know. Like that's honestly what it reminds me of. Like Kevin Patullo got a nice grade, got bailed out by the players who voted for this grade. He got bailed out. But honestly, I think the positive in how bad Kevin Patullo was last season is that there's no way it can be worse. Like Kevin Patullo did such a bad job last year with this offense. There's no way it could be worse. Like, and that's one reason why I'm actually glad the Eagles didn't make it to the Super Bowl this year, let alone win the Super Bowl this year, is because if we would have made the Super Bowl or won the Super Bowl, Kevin Patullo would still have a job in Philly as OC. He would still have a job in Philly as OC. And that just, no way that could have been acceptable. No way that could have been allowed. So that there's definitely a positive in not only us not making it to the Super Bowl, but I also do see a positive in just how bad he was last year because there's no way it can get worse. Like, there's no way the offense in 2026 under Sean Mannion can be worse than what it was in 2025. It can be as bad, possibly, just because Sean Mannion is another first-year offensive coordinator. I don't think that is likely, but I think it's more likely the offense is as bad as opposed to it being worse. Like, I honestly think the offense will improve in 2026. I honestly feel a lot better about this offense in 2026 partly because of just how positive Saquon Barkley and AJ Brown have been publicly about the Sean Mannion hire. It seems like the system he's talked about putting in place. Like that's one thing that makes me feel better, specifically Saquon Barkley. Like Saquon Barkley being publicly positive about Sean Mannion is what specifically makes me feel better because of the systems that Saquon Barkley has played in, the teams that he has been on. Like obviously Saquon Barkley was in a tough situation in New York, being the only skill player that defenses had to really key on, the only skill player that drew attention from defenses. And then obviously what he went through last year, under Kevin Patullo. But then the heights that he saw in 2024 under Kellen Moore. Like that's like Saquon Barkley being as positive as he has been, publicly about Sean Mannion and the whole Sean Mannion hire and the scheme. That makes me feel a lot better just because of who Saquon Barkley is, his experience, the different teams that he's been on, being Giants and then different chapters on an Eagles team. But, Saquon Barkley last week, he was on the NFL Insider show where he talked about, just kind of gave his thoughts on what Sean Mannion brings to this team and just the positivity of this hire. And this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I'm going on year 9, which is crazy to say. And I've had a lot of different coaches and head coaches and been a part of a lot of systems. And I don't think I really came across a system like this. And for me, it's just about, it's refreshing. You get something new. You get to learn something new.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley saying refreshing. That's very positive sounding from Saquon Barkley. But like Saquon Barkley saying it's very refreshing. Like when I hear refreshing, I think different. I think a change. I think a healthy change. And that is definitely obviously something that this Eagles offense needs. And when we think about change, think about the role Saquon Barkley had on the offense last year. That was the norm. It was him running a lot of inside zone runs when he did get the ball, just straight dives up the A gap, just straight up the middle, not really putting him in a position to use his sort of athleticism, his ball carrying skills as much, just his ability to be a ball carrier in open field to create in some taking advantage of space. Like Kevin Patullo's game plan did not put Saquon Barkley in a position to succeed, something that most of the other skill players on the offense could relate to. So the fact that Saquon Barkley called this offensive scheme, this hire, as a refreshing change from what we saw last year, that says a lot to me because it's it sounds like it's freeing. Like it sounds like Saquon Barkley has more rooms to sort of spread his wings a little more, a little more leg room, in the offense. Which kind of tells me he might be doing different things, kind of being used in different ways the way Kellen Moore used him in 2024, being used in the past, on those wheel routes out of the backfield, not just getting the ball up the middle, from Jalen Hurts under center, but, allowing, Saquon Barkley to get to the outside on some outside zone runs, some counter runs, some, some power plays, maybe more screens, allowing him to kind of just get the ball behind a wave of blockers in open field, just allowing him to kind of use those legs, use his shiftiness. Like Saquon Barkley talking about Sean Mannion in this offense the way he has been, that definitely makes me feel a whole lot better. And honestly, it makes me believe that this offense will 100% improve in 2026. 1000%. Like I have to believe that. I have to believe that. But like Saquon Barkley wasn't the only one that was underutilized in this offense. Like Saquon Barkley talking about this Sean Mannion hire and scheme as refreshing, it makes me think about not just how he was underutilized, but how multiple guys in the offense were underutilized because of the scheme. Tank Bigsby being underutilized, barely getting the ball, even though when he did get the ball, he usually made something happen on third down, third and long, second and long, even in short yardage situations. Obviously, the passing game, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith being underutilized, really kind of throwing off the chemistry between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown as well, being able to connect on some of those deep balls, whether it was Jalen Hurts slightly overthrowing A.J., whether it was A.J. just not being able to reel it in. Like, there were a lot of guys that were underutilized and misused on this scheme under Kevin Patullo. So for Saquon Barkley to refer to not just Sean Mannion, but the new concepts now in that offensive scheme as refreshing, it makes me think that we are going to be seeing a healthy change going into 2026. A healthy change, a much needed change, growth. Like I honestly, it makes me feel, listening to Saquon Barkley talk, it makes me feel much better about the 2026 season offensively, especially in light of the fact that Jeff Stoutland will no longer be with us. Especially in light of that sort of, in that development. So, but one thing I do think too is under Sean Mannion, with his coaching tree, and then of course with the added mind of Jonathan Grizzard as well, I think we're going to see a lot more creativity in this offense than we did last season under Kevin Patullo. Like, I definitely don't think I think there's a 0%. I think there's a 0 to 1% chance that this offense is worse than what it was last year under Kevin Patullo. I think there is a slight chance it could be as bad just because of Sean Mannion's experience. But I think there's a bigger chance that this offense will be more creative than what we've seen. And looking at that increase in creativity, I think Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown will be a top 5 QB receiver duo in 2026. Like under Sean Mannion, under the creativity of Sean Mannion and added mind of Jonathan Grizzard, I think Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown will be a top 5 QB receiver duo in the NFL in 2026 because I'm looking at what they were able to do under Kevin Patullo despite Kevin Patullo. Like, despite Kevin Patullo, Jalen Hurts was still top 5 in total touchdowns as a quarterback. Despite Kevin Patullo, A.J. Brown was still hit 1,000 yards on the season this past season. Like, I think, like the fact that they were able to do what they did last year with Kevin Patullo holding them back, like, I can only imagine what these two will be able to do now that they have a full offseason to get back on the same page and that they have a competent scheme and a competent coach kind of in their headset in the regular season. I think Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown will be up there with Sam Darnold and JSN this year, C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, and honestly Dak Prescott and George Pickens. Like, I think Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown will be a top 5 duo amongst those guys, those other duos that I just named, based on what we can expect from Sean Mannion this year. And I know I left Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase off of that list. The only reason why I did not include Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase on that top 5 list is because I think Joe Burrow is going to be too banged up this year to really do anything because of how bad that Bengals offensive line is. I think Joe Burrow, I honestly, God forbid this happens, but I wouldn't be surprised if Joe Burrow misses more games this coming season because he's too busy getting these nagging injuries because his O-line just lets whoever hit him whenever. Whoever gets to him whenever. So I definitely think in 2026, under Sean Mannion, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown will be a top 5 QB receiver duo in the 2026 season. The fact that they were able to do what they did in spite of Kevin Patullo, Jalen Hurts being top 5 in total touchdowns, A.J. Brown still hitting 1,000 yards on the season, despite how bad this scheme was, despite how much Kevin Patullo was holding them back, I definitely think now that they have what should be a more competent OC, a more creative-minded OC in Sean Mannion, that those two could be a top 5 duo this year. I honestly think they'll definitely be up there with Sam Darnold and JSN this year, Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin, Dak Prescott and George Pickens, and CJ Stroud and Nico Collins. I think I think that'll be I think that those will be the I think that'll be the top 5 this coming season in terms of QB receiver duos based off of what we saw last season and what we can expect to see this season with guys being healthy. 100%. 100%. But looking at the rest of this report card, another grade that does not surprise me at all is Vic Fangio getting an A+. Vic Fangio deserved an A++. 100%. That grade did not surprise me at all because Vic Fangio and the defense is the biggest reason why the Eagles are even in the playoffs this year. Like, with how ineffective Kevin Patullo and this scheme was on offense, with how much it underperformed, Vic Fangio and the defense is what kept us afloat and is what honestly got us to where we were able to get to this season. Like, the theme of this season was the defense bailing out the offense. The offense having to constantly rely on the defense to win them games, to get them over that hump, to get them over that through that final stretch. Like, honestly, Vic Fangio deserved assistant coach of the year this year because of how vital that defense was to the Eagles even making the playoffs, to them even making the wild card round, let alone anything they could have done after that. Like, the Eagles this season were 11-6. We can accredit at least 5 of those wins to the defense alone. At least 5 of those wins. The Eagles defense bailed out the offense against the Chiefs, bailed out the offense against the Rams, field goal block return for a touchdown to win the game, bailed out the offense against Green Bay, multiple sacks, multiple turnovers, especially in the Kobe Dean strip sack in the backfield. They bailed out the Eagles offense against the Lions, and they bailed out the offense against the Bills towards the end of the season in the snow game. Those are 5 wins. That's almost half of our wins that were because of the defense. If the defense doesn't perform the way it did in those 5 games, the Eagles are 6-11 instead of 11-5 or 11-6, excuse me. The Eagles are 6-11. Like Vic Fangio and this defense were the biggest difference between the Eagles being a wild card round team and the Eagles being a in the running for like a top 10, top 7 pick in the draft this year. 100%. Like, Vic Fangio was so good as a defensive coordinator this year. He carried Vic Fangio had to carry Kevin Patullo to the playoffs. The offense was so bad this year, underperformed so much this year. It had to rely on the defense to win just about half of their wins this season. The Eagles won 11 games this year. 5 of those wins were because of the defense. Kevin Patullo was so bad as an OC. Vic Fangio as the DC had to carry him to the playoffs. For that alone, Vic Fangio deserved assistant coach of the year this year. 100%. Because without Vic Fangio, the Eagles don't make the playoffs. 1 year removed from a Super Bowl win, from being on top of the world, having the parades. 1 year removed from that, the Eagles would have been a 6-win to 5-win team without Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio and the defense had to carry Kevin Patullo in the offense. So Vic Fangio getting an A+ grade on the NFL Players Association report cards does not surprise me in the slightest. But that's all we got for today's edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. And I'll be back later on with more shameless takes.